Welcome to the Arts Lunch at United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. I'm Jennifer Oz Freeman, Associate Professor and Program Director of Theology and Arts here, and I'm super excited to have Bridgette Ellen Weber, aka B.E. Weber, presenting their work with us in food and art and theology and more. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here today. I'm really excited to share some of my food journey with you all. I'm mostly focusing on like my culinary arts experience and sort of where I have gone in the like culinary arts field and in food systems and sort of community food related projects, and then some of the like earth mandala community art that I've done, and just sort of how that has kind of brought me into this space. That's a picture of me. My friend Andrea took that. She was doing an art project where she was doing like headdresses of people's passions. So had to fit that in somewhere. I'm playing off of the Animal Vegetable Miracle book here. So here's a little, I was like, how do I like visually represent sort of where I've gone in the food world? So yeah, my first job was in fast food. I worked at Taco Bell when I was 14, and that is where this journey begins. So I cannot leave that out. And but I think it's cool to see the progression from like fast food to like L'Etoile James Beard Award-winning restaurant. So you don't just end up there, right? And so I moved from worked at Taco Bell, then I started working at like the local diner in Chilton. So I grew up in Chilton, Wisconsin, and that is about a town of 4,000 people in rural Wisconsin. And so there weren't a lot of options for jobs when you're in high school. You basically worked at Dairy Queen, Taco Bell, maybe Quick Trip, and then Seven Angels sort of came around when I was in high school. So then a lot of us worked there. I worked there with my mom and two of my sisters at the same time. And my little sister would come in and like pour coffee. So it was very sweet. I actually worked there in high school and college. I moved to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which is like an hour away, and then like continued working at their other location. And then I worked at this bar and grill, and that was sort of when I made the transition from I was doing serving and hosting at Seven Angels to like the back of the house. So I had basically was told that I wasn't good at it. At hosting, yeah. The boss was like, "You're really shy," and I was like, "Yeah, I am." And I was like, "How about I do something else then? Like, how about I work in the back instead, because maybe I would like that better." And actually it was like a blessing in disguise. It was so much better for me. I loved working in the kitchen. I was like very like quick to like grab onto things there. And then that sort of like started my, I guess, career, like working in food. And I put the little rain clouds above those three things because that was a really rough time of my life. I was in school, I dropped out, I was like very, very lost. I was very like lots of drugs and alcohol kind of phase of my life where I like truly was, just sort of spiraling out. Did not know that I had PTSD, did not know a lot of things about myself at that time. And so I just wanted to represent that, there was like that was a really transitional time of my life where I was sort of finding myself, and then eventually my decision to go back to school and to go back to UW Oshkosh, where I had previously like stopped going to for 4 years, was I don't know, I think it helped me really survive that period of my life, like finding, like grounding myself in food and being like, ooh, that's something for some reason I'm really attaching to and I love, and so I'm gonna just go with that. The little prince symbol over the Hilton. Because the sous chef that trained me there was Prince's personal chef. So I feel like I'm like once removed from, Prince a little bit. But yeah, she was the head chef there that trained me into that job. And then, the Oshkosh Food Co-op, I was the founding president for the Oshkosh Food Co-op in my undergrad years. And then I started going back to school, but then stopped because I had this opportunity to be on the Sustainable Living Roadshow, which was like this eco justice circus that started in Oakland, California. And they were like going around the country performing, and I got to like manage their green marketplace, which was also super transformational for me. It was like complete culture shock. I was like the one Midwesterner, and yeah, it was like I had never been around just like so many people who thought differently than I did. I thought I was like the progressive hippie, in my own context, but then like when I was there, I was like very conservative, I was seen as like this very conservative person. And so anyway, then I came back, and then I like worked in a bunch of other restaurants, an Italian bistro, worked at this place called Fresh, which was a farm to table restaurant in Neenah, Wisconsin. And then after I graduated with an environmental science degree, I worked at Trust Local Foods, which was a local food distribution center. I worked there for 2 years as their only employee, so I did a lot of things. And then I moved to Madison after living in Oshkosh for 10 years, and was a pastry chef at L'Etoile, which was a pretty fancy place in Madison. Chef Tori Miller runs that and has won 2 James Beard Awards. And then I went quickly, but then I opened my own business then, Springing Bowl Chef, because I did not want to continue working in the restaurant industry. It felt very toxic environment. And I couldn't spend enough time with my family, honestly. It was like always nights and weekends was when I was working. And so I was like missing out on a lot of community and stuff that I wanted to be part of. So here's some of the farms that I've worked at throughout the years. These are all in Wisconsin, but Olden Produce, Fraser Farms, and Good Earth Farms were all places that I was like a farm hand. I worked in Olden I worked full time. The other two I was like a farm. What do you call it? I received food for working for them. And then Crossroads Community Farm, I was a on-farm chef for their staff. I went there once a week. And then Washington Farm, I would partner with them with a lot of the dinners that I did and use a lot of their food. Here's some photos of my early years kind of working on farms. The top two are, the one on the left is Olden Produce, and the one on the right is from Good Earth Farm. And the Oshkosh Food Co-op was, about 4 years. I had basically my professor Paul approached me because I was really involved in like the garden club and social justice club. And I talked about food a lot and food systems. And he was like, we really need a food co-op in Oshkosh and you should start one. And I was naive enough to be like, yeah. But it was good that I was sort of this like naive student, because I think that's honestly what the movement needed to start, was just someone to be like not overwhelmed by it, because it did take a very long time. And yeah, so here's some images of our first board of directors. And I was also a writer for the Oshkosh Independent newspaper at the time, so I got to write about the food co-op and what was happening. There's a picture of us getting our first like key to the mailbox and our little booth that we would take to the farmer's market. And there's Brad, he was a classmate of mine and one of the first batch of founders for the food co-op. Just kind of, yeah, just like we started off as this, you know, that's one of our first annual meetings on the left, the 2012, you know, just like church basement potluck, was how we, you know, got our first like hundreds of members. But then this woman, Brenda, was a marketing professional and developed that she has won an award for these co-op grow-up events because they brought in the most amount of food co-op members of any co-op event. I feel like they like won some like national award for how many members they got in one night. Because she would throw these annual events, and that was like the main way that they got food co-op members. And they would get like hundreds of people to sign up in one night. And then that was kind of the main way that they over time sort of grew. But we needed 1,000. We needed 1,000 members in Oshkosh to have enough money and capital to make the store possible. But 10 years later, the co-op is open in Oshkosh, and it opened in 2020. Those are images of two of the, after I left Oshkosh, those were the next two presidents that sort of brought it home. And that was, yeah, just an image of the building that it's in. And opening day, the food co-op opening on, what was it, Thursday, July 22nd, 2020. Which, let's see, what else can I say about the co-op? So Oshkosh is known for being really divided between the university and the rest of the city. It is not an integrated city. It's like people who were born there live there, and people who were not born there come to school and leave. You know, like that's pretty much what happens. So like the retention of like the college students and like innovative ideas staying in the city, you know, like they were not known for that. People would often leave. And so this was a really difficult task for Oshkosh, and probably why it took 10 years for them to get 1,000 people to invest in this project. It took a lot of educating. It took a lot of, lots and lots of education about what co-ops are and like what it's going to do for the community and how you'll benefit. I don't have a lot of pictures of when I was a fancy food chef. So this is sort of my like representative.
You're too busy working.
Yeah. I knew how to plate fancy things at one point. But yeah, so basically then I'm gonna get into my business as I started singing Bowls Chef. Geez. It was probably 2015. And was basically a response to being overworked in the restaurant industry, but still really wanting to be involved in food, in cooking, and also really wanting to like figure out a way that I could bring all the things I was learning in undergrad about sustainability and sustainable farming, and the way that the food system can really like combat climate change and all these other things. To me, I was like, I need to find a way that local foods can become this thing that I am a part of, but like in the restaurant industry is like not where I want to be. It's like very, I wasn't sleeping enough. It was like you'd work like 12-hour days without breaks, and then like everyone would like drink at night, and it would just became this like kind of toxic cycle. So I started my business. I basically started it by putting an ad on Craigslist and being like, hey, well, is anyone willing to trial like a personal chef situation where I like cook for you and I store all of the food as leftovers and you have like meals all week. And I got 3 people to bite on that. And then that sort of gave me enough momentum to get started. And so then I found a few clients, Janet and Becky, who are like long-term. I worked for them for 3 years. And they gave me a lot, Becky especially was like, just do whatever you want. And so that freedom to create what I wanted and like buy the foods where I wanted was a really special opportunity for me. And just, yeah, just kind of what it looked like at the end. Lots of storing food. Got to do some fancy catering for a couple of their like Christmas parties, and I just wanted to show that here. I know where this goes. This one.
Harry Potter's last night.
Well, yeah.
Unbelievable.
And then, yeah, so Crossroads Community Farm, 2 summers in a row, I got to be their like on-farm chef, which was like the best job ever. I would come in, well, I like would basically tell them what food I wanted for the week. And then I would just come up with a menu and like cook for their staff. Wow. It was wonderful. I loved it so much. And probably to this day is still my favorite cooking job ever because it was intimate and small. And it was just slower. And I still got to got to go onto their farm and be with them on the farm and cook with all their food. And yeah, and it just felt like the pace of it felt really nice. Kind of like what I would love to be doing. Then I took a kind of a pivot and I started working for this gym. And so this was like completely different. I started doing meal planning for a gym and it did not last long because it wasn't sustainable for me. And yeah, also the gym wasn't paying me well. They lied. So we ended up not working together. But it was a good experience for me to work in a culinary kitchen. The images, yeah, there's a, forget the name of it, but in Madison, they have a culinary community kitchen that most of the food trucks rent out. And so I was able to like meet a lot of amazing chefs and community chefs there and learn about the local food scene like through the community kitchen and just like to understand what it means to rent a community space and that it is really expensive and hard to make a profit. Especially when like, yeah, you're working on local foods that are already kind of expensive. But it was awesome. People loved it. I mean, people were like very into having really delicious local food as their meals. And I had a lot of fun with that. Some images of different like, I worked as a social media consultant with the CSA Coalition, Fair Share CSA Coalition in Madison. So I would take recipes from their cookbooks. That's the tofu bread in the middle, is like I take their cookbooks and make things from out of them and then create a social media post. So we had like this exchange. Like I would be able to promote my business through the post and they would be able to promote some of their recipes. And I don't know, pretty tarts, pretty cupcakes. I did some like holiday bazaar events with the community kitchen. And so some of these images are like what we sold at the fairs. And then I got the opportunity to work at the Dane County Farmers Market breakfast and yeah, so I sponsored or hosted one of those breakfasts where we served like about 200 meals that morning. And so I got to have a team of like 12 or 13 people that were like helping prep all the food, and I got to come up with the menu and I got to use all the food from the local farmers. That was a delight. It was really incredible and fun. And probably the most people I've fed, I think in one sort of event. And then the Squashington Farm was the partner I had in Mount Horeb, where I also did their farmers market breakfast. That was just 2 It was 3 or 4 years in a row, twice a winter. So the farmer's market in the winter only had 2 days. But I was able to, at first, sort of worked with Washington Farm to make the dinner, make the breakfast happen, but then they just sort of gave the whole project to me. And then I got to do it on my own for like 3 years. And got to hire my friends to come in and cook with me. That was also just amazing to have a full kitchen, and I actually made money on that event, you know, like, yeah. But getting to really like, yeah, get to know who's growing what and how to like, support them and use their food. And then I had my first farm to table dinner in Madison. So it was about 22 people, mostly my friends and family. And I made a bunch of, I started watching Chef's Table and really hearing the stories of people and like where they were coming from. And actually Chef Sherman too, like I feel like I started discovering him around that time. He's the chef at Owamni, who I was just like, where are the indigenous foods? Like, where are the restaurants that have like the foods that were grown in this country? And I was like, there really aren't any. And then I heard about him and it was like, whoa, you're like literally a big person doing this. It's amazing. But it just helped me to ground in like, what is my story? Where did I come from? Like, what am I doing? Like, what's special about what I'm doing and where did it come from? And so this dinner was like really dedicated to like my grandma. And I used like her pickle recipe and served like pickles in the beginning and like deviled eggs, because deviled eggs were always at our like holidays. And kind of set it up like a summer picnic vibe, because summer, basically our family always did potlucks for all the meals. And I just made a bunch of different like family style salads that you could like pass around. And I wanted to do like, just have that vibe of like, we're all the food's on the table and you're passing it to each other. And it's not a gourmet plated dinner, which I always thought that's what I would do. That I would have this fancy dinner. And then when it came time to it, I was like, that doesn't really feel like me. And I would rather just sort of recreate this like potlucky family sharing vibe. And then my main entree was like an heirloom tomato soup. Ugh, because tomato soup and grilled cheese is always my comfort food. So I was like, freaking amazing local sourdough, just a giant loaf of, what's the name of it?
The
Miche, yeah.
Oh my god.
Miche from Madison sourdough.
Those are the best.
And it's like this giant, it's like
They're like
this big. Yeah, it's literally like this big. And it's made for family style, like eating it all week. It doesn't go bad. It is just amazing. And so we toasted that and had like local goat cheese and the heirloom tomato soup. And then I made some like popsicles as the dessert, because that's kind of a cute little summer potluck dessert. Yeah, just some photos of that dinner. My friend Hannah is my kind of main bud, and that's my sister Shauna, the blonde, and my really one of my best friends, Mary. So it's just amazing to be able to like work with some of my like most beloved friends and family on something that I cared about so much. And then sort of transition from this was the first, so then I hosted a women's retreat like the next year. And I did a yoga training, so I did a 200-hour yoga training. And I had started making music with some of my friends, and it was like 2 of my girlfriends on Friday nights. And it just had this like, this is missing in my life, like this sort of consistent getting together with my like lady friends and having this time to share with each other just feels like is so important. And I don't feel like I'm like getting enough of that. And like, how can we like make this happen for other people? So we like just decided to do a retreat weekend and see what would happen. So my friend Rebecca in the round photo teamed up with me, and we organized like a 3-day retreat weekend where I got to cater all the food And I sort of curated the event and like hired different people to come in, and my friend Rachel, who was one of my yoga trainers in my yoga program, came and did the morning like asana and meditation. And I made all the food. And then hired a woman named Jess in Baroque to do like a 4-hour like foraging hike. She taught us about like the local herbs and plants in the area that we were in, and then we made tinctures with her, and she did like a little mini lecture on like local herbs and plants. So I didn't like really know what I was doing at that time, but then like as the years went by, I was like, oh wow, yeah, that was like this sort of at the candle, right? Like the goddess candle there became like really connecting with women, and like sort of my feminine parts of myself became really important to me. I think that I had like grown up in a really like misogynistic place and had been sexually abused in multiple occasions. So like reconnecting with like my femininity and sexuality, and like hearing the stories of other women was like very, very healing and important for me. And sort of kickstarted that piece of kind of bringing that into like my food image. We might have time. I made a video. So this is an example of how I helped to bring my nieces and nephews sort of like into my food world. I was like, how do I get them to engage with food with me? And I was like, aha, we'll make a YouTube video. So I love lemon curd. And so I asked them if they want, well, first went to the farmer's market, and we didn't make anything on it, I guess. Like we didn't use any of the ingredients from the farmer's market in this video, but that was sort of like step one was like, let's go to the farmer's market together. And step two was like make a cooking video together. And so I think we have time to show this. Wait, you can do that. What do I do? This is awesome.
When you do the share, because you have to click. When you click share screen, you have to also click share video.
I
When you share
sound.
sound, yeah. Yeah. So, no. When you do, you're already kind of sharing your screen. So we do stop share and then share screen. Oh, okay. And then maybe now, and then share sound, but then it might do the weird. Oh, right here. Oh, we can see.
Welcome to the Dolphin Pod Cooking Show. Bacon, Bubba Bacon, Bacon, Bubba Bacon, eggs, cracking, lemons, squeezing. Today we are going to be making lemon curd. We're going to be showing you the ingredients. I'm Elle. I'm Robin. And today we have one pinch of pink salt and 8 tablespoons of butter and 3 lemons.
It's not loud enough in here.
Oh, it's not loud enough.
I don't know why.
Can other folks hear it? Okay.
That says you can hear it.
Okay. Let's go ahead.
We have 4 eggs and 1 cup of white sugar. First, we need the rest of the equipment to make the lemon curd. First, we need a pan to boil water. Then we need a drainer for all the lemons to squeeze in. Then we need a parent to cut up the lemons. And then we need 2 bowls to separate the white and the yolk. And then we need a big bowl everything to, at the end we're gonna mix everything in. So I'm separating the, oh geez, white from the yolk. Okay, done. Squeezed all the lemon juice I could into this bowl. And then I put all the seeds into the drainer. Okay, this is how you squeeze the lemon. You do like that. I separated the yolk from the white. So this is the white and this is the yolk. I'm glad I didn't do the yolk. So this is how you be a good chef. So first, you clean up what you did before you move on to another thing. You clean the table. You can clean the table and yeah. Okay, done. So what you're gonna do next is you're gonna fill the pot up with water, and then you're gonna put it on your stove or one of these, and then you're gonna put your big bowl on top of it, and that's what I know so far. I grab one piece. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be pouring the egg yolks into the sugar.
I liked how they plopped in.
Then you mix them.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And then you mix it until the sugar kind of dissolves.
And then pour the lemon juice in.
Okay, into where? Into Once it's mixed, then Robin or me, we haven't decided, maybe both of us at the same time, we're gonna add it to our double boiler. Okay, no. Ooh. Robin. So Robin is stirring consistently so that our mixture stays smooth. And Robin, tell us what you're doing.
I'm mixing it with two hands because I don't want it to get too fast like my hand like that. And be a little bit slow. Then I don't want it to go out of the bowl.
So I'm mixing it really fast. So we took our curd off the water after it got thick. And now Robin's adding the cheese to it.
It's not cheese, by the way. It's
It's butter.
But it looks like cheese.
Yeah, it does. And we're going to be trying our lemon curd. So we're going to be getting a little bit. So Robin, get a little bit.
I did. I'm really good.
Okay, then on the count of three, we're going to... One, two, three. That's really good.
It actually is really good.
It's not actually... I don't like it.
I do. I love it.
Okay, so you guys, I am the only one that doesn't like lemon curd. Stay tuned and like and subscribe to our channel. In our next video, it's gonna be amazing. So,
How long ago was this? Oh, that was not this last summer, but the summer before. Okay. Yeah.
It's not actually like.
It's not actually. So the best part, she actually, before we did that segment, so basically I would like help them say what they were gonna say, and then we just like try it 2 times and then go with it. But that one, she was like, do I have to say I like it even if I don't? And I was like, no, you can just react however whatever you really think. So good thing she asked. Oh, wow. I'm gonna get this real on the screen.
let's see. Amy's gotta go, but has
Oh.
questions for the future.
Oh, okay, cool. Please email me. Yeah. Oh. Can I get like the little Zoom people on? Oh, I can see them here. Never mind. Yes. I can see Zoom people. Where are my Zoom people at? Okay. So, then I just want to, kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about the earth mandalas that I was a part of. This was an art, well, I guess like Veronica, pictured here, was on the Sustainable Living Roadshow. And basically like what she did at all of the events that, because we would travel around the US and go to different schools and festivals and teach about like sustainability through this like circus that we like, that they built and designed around like educating children about in the environment. And but what she did was like had a team of people that would help her forage for different natural items every time. And then she basically created this like sacred space, these like earth altars at every event. And they were just like the most beautiful, amazing part of the experience for me every time. And I often got to help Veronica like forage for different things and like help with the setup and help with like just like holding that space. It just meant a lot to me. Coming from Wisconsin, I had never been in a space before where people had heart circles. And so I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing gathering in a circle and talking about our feelings? Like I had never done that. I was the only person of like 35 people. The first night that we gathered, we were in Philly and we gathered in a circle in someone's backyard and they were like, we're gonna have a heart circle. And like, we're all just going to go around and like check in and say how we're doing. And I was like, I'm not. I do not know what you're talking about. Like I've never done this before. And so I was the only person who didn't speak and just sort of observed that night. But then it was like, so being on the roadshow was, like changed my life in so many ways. But one of the things that I took away from it was like, I was very attracted to Veronica's art and the way that she created sacred spaces. And so I asked her if I could like bring that to my community, and she said yes, that like please share this. So I started to use that earth mandala sort of making as like a way to engage with my community in Madison around this nonprofit work that I was doing with Sarvodia USA, which is like a holistic sort of like alternative economic development model, which could talk a whole nother day about all the things that they do, but essentially it was like using it as like an awareness campaign for what Sarvodia was doing. But mostly it was a way for me to like bring these earth mandalas into my community, engage with my community and making them. It was just amazing to really truly like feel each person putting their hands on an object and putting it inside of this collective image, and like being able to stand back and see like we all made this together, and like these are all natural items that we found. These are all things that are living around us. So I did several of those throughout probably like a 3-year span. These were all at the Farley Center for Social Justice. Farley Center for Peace, Justice, and Sustainability, I think is the name of it, in near Madison, Wisconsin. So they had me basically every fall. I was a part of their fall festival events. And then the Madison Mini Makers Fair, for some reason, we had a booth there. Wherever we could, right? So that was another, this was in the spring, I think it was like 2017. You ran into you. And then it started gaining like attention from the Overture Center and the Children's Museum. And they were like, we've never seen someone do these like earth mandalas. So like, would you like to be at our like annual fundraising gala? So this was like a different type of event that, I would have to imagine myself being at the Frosty Ball gala in Madison, but like we were just like one of the little side rooms, like all these so it was a great experience, honestly, to see the diversity of spaces and like who's attracted to this kind of art. And then the Overture also had the international festival every year, so then that became like an annual sort of thing that we would attend. And that's Joe in the middle. Joe Warburton was the director of Sarvodia USA, so he's wearing the little Sarvodia t-shirt there. It was a challenge. And so like the Overture Center was mostly working with children, which was a different type of challenge with how to create this sort of design. But it was a good lesson in like, most of the time, the less you try to control what was happening, the better it worked out. It was kind of bad. And then, and then I moved to St. Paul and started attending seminary because I realized that through my food work, I kept pivoting to things. I was like, that's not quite right. I need to like do something else that's like more aligned with me. And then like as I kept going, I realized that I just kept wanting to build community around local foods and really ask people to engage in a local food economy in like a big way. And so it just sort of became more and more clear that I think I had a moment where I was like, oh, I'm doing church. I never thought of it like that. Like I'm doing what churches do. Like they bring people together, they like feed each other, they have these like commitments to each other, these spiritual, I was seeing food as sacred. Like I was just like, I see how sacred it is. I see how sacred it is. And how do I get other people to see that? And how do I like share this with other people? And it just started, I guess it was just like more and more revealed to me that that was like a big message that was coming through me that I wanted to be sending. So my first class with Dr. Ross Friedman, History of Christian Theologies, I did a parody of the council, the Arian controversy through this sort of bread metaphor. And I don't think we have time to like read this all, but just an example of like how I even brought food into that class with this sort of parody of understanding, like the Trinity. I didn't know that bread was going to be the thing.
They seem to prefer shitty bread.
Bread ended up being like it was so hard to think of a different metaphor for the Trinity. And like I was like, aha, a sourdough starter. It's like something that breaks away from its original thing, but becomes its own thing, but it's still part of the original thing, kind of. And so it was an aha moment. I will read out loud the bread creed. We believe in one sourdough, the bread almighty, baker of all breads, visible and invisible, and in one Lord bread, the loaf of bread, the same batch as the Father bread, the only recipe, that is, the same ingredients of the Father, bread of bread, recipe of recipe, very starter of very starter, recipe not made, starter of by whom all things were baked, both in heaven and earth, who for us loaves and for our digestion came down and was loafed and was made bread. He was crucified, and on the third day he rose again, ascended into French toast. From thence bread shall come to judge the risen and the dead.
The risen and the dead was good.
And with the
I
glow.
forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, okay.
It's rare, grading things when I'm laughing out loud. Grading,
Well, I really was like, I don't think that the people I grew up with in the Catholic Church know anything about what these things mean, and I should try, the whole basis of that project was like, how do I bring pop culture, like, how do I do something that can appeal to like broader mass audiences to help people understand what these things were. I don't know, these are just some random other food things. Also in Dr. Ross Friedman's class this semester, we did an art observation where I looked at the farmer's market as my sort of art observation in the community, and I loved it so much, and I like want to keep going back there and drawing the farmer's market. It really like added an extra like spiritual depth to what I was already seeing as a spiritual place. And I developed this market bingo for the Connect Summit, which I was a part of with Reverend Emily about a year ago, as just an idea for how to engage youth and families when they go to the market. How can you start to like engage with the market more in a deeper way? And then my main projects at United have been like my social transformation project was this Becoming Beloved community project, which looked at racial equity in rural UCC congregations. And I have another slide about how food is incorporated into that, but then also this sort of the ethical argument is of food sovereignty needing to be an ethic that we bring into our Christian communities in order to reach this sort of idea of beloved community. This was kind of the like layout of the Becoming Beloved project, was like wanting to juxtapose the Christian calendar with the like lunar calendar and the agricultural calendar, and to see like what they look like side by side. And so I was trying to think, I was like, I had an aha moment where I kept being like, it's about food, but Dr. Saviatanis helped me see that the problem and the issue to address is racism, but the method I can use is food. So then I was like, yes. So then so I developed this sort of year-long internship basically of like how to work with the congregation on anti-racism through potlucks, like weekly potlucks, and like analyzing our community, like looking at our community and relationships, and really just like looking at all of our relationships to each other and to land, and like looking at who the BIPOC farmers are and BIPOC business owners, and sort of getting the conversation started around that in this way, that I thought would appeal to like rural people, like where I come from. And then, of course, started the United Family Dinners tradition here on Sundays. That was our epic family photo from last Sunday when we did a singing event before the potluck. Oh yeah, that's it. I had, we are out of time. Well, this is, I guess, I don't know if this watched. This doesn't really have anything to do with food. It was art I made recently that I felt like was inspired by a lot of food.
Let the summer rain fall on city ground, take us from the past into something more.
That's what you sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the end. Aprons. Stop.
Yeah.
Let's open it up for like
Time for, yeah, some
questions.
Yeah, questions, comments?
That was just so wonderful, Bridget.
I've heard like bits of your story, but to hear it all together and kind of this, I feel like the way you were telling it felt kind of circular, like you just kept going deeper and deeper, like kind of like mandala, so that was just really neat. I'm like trying to find the question, but something that I'm like really curious about, I keep thinking about how when you were working at the farm and cooking for the small amount of people in a very place-based situation.
Yeah.
And what you were saying about time, like the pace of it being so different and that being like you're like, when you think about when I was making food, like this was the peak. This was when I felt like this is my favorite one. And I'm just curious about time and how you think about when you're thinking about making a meal or hosting a thing or doing a project, like whether you're thinking about how you want to pace yourself through that or which context will allow you to like build that in to the experience. Because at that point you weren't like leading ritual with it. You were making food, which is, I mean, there was ritual to it. But now that you're like intentionally creating ritual, like through the circling and the mandala and coming here, like how you would like loop back to that and like create more.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. I feel like that was really a big intention of mine with the retreat, with the triple moon retreat. Because I was like, I know I don't want to do more than 25 people. 25 seems like the max amount of people that and I timed it all out. I really did focus on time a lot, that I was like, how long will it take me? Because actually that experience with the meal planning thing in the kitchen where I was like overdoing it, and I actually developed plantar fasciitis from like being on my feet for way too long. That really showed me like the limits of like what I really didn't want to do. And so like that helped me to like gauge what I did want. And then time became like really such a central piece of it because it was all about how do I enjoy this? I also was like, went into it being like, how do I get to be a part of this retreat? I don't want to just be the exhausted host. Like, I want to be here with everyone too. And so I kind of planned out like how many days ahead of time, what do I need to do to take off of work? And so I like scheduled days to take off of work. So I had enough time to like enjoy making all the food I made. And like, that was key. I was like, I will not do this if I'm not enjoying it. Like, I will not do this if I am not like loving the way I'm making the food. And like, so yeah, I'm glad you asked that because it was key. It was like only a limit on so many people, planning out how many days I could do it. And then like cooking those 3 meals at the retreat was totally doable. I prepped everything ahead of time and basically just like brought it all in. And I had one person who did like a food trade. So like she was my like person that I'd be like, okay, like we're gonna go like get the food out, but we didn't have to prepare any food there, essentially. Like it was mostly just like cutting up little things and like putting out the salad. But yes, there was a lot of intention around that.
I know you've been doing the meals, here at United. Curious, like, it seems like you really kind of like intuitively follow these, things, opportunities as they arise and respond to them in different ways. So I'm curious, like, at this point in your seminary career, like, are you, I guess, one, how is kind of, you shared some of your work too from seminary, like, how is your time at United kind of shaping this stuff? And do you, at this point, have any inclinations towards what this looks like? Moving, forward after you.
Yeah, I feel like where I'm at with that is, one thing I'm gonna try out is doing a food-based chapel. And so using food as a spiritual metaphor. And so really like bringing that closer and like kind of more like better articulating like how I see sacred in food through like bringing it right into like the liturgy. And so like kind of doing like a food demo as part of the liturgy. And so like I talked to Emily about this a little bit too of finding like a biblical text that sort of connects with the food metaphor that I'm thinking of. And then my first idea was like using oil and vinegar and herbs and like bringing them together in like an emulsion blend to make a vinaigrette, and like talking about like this sort of bringing together and making a new thing, and that like it's, these two separate things that like don't really mix, but like when they are brought together to make a new thing, they're actually like make a more delicious thing. Anyway, there's a lot you can say about that. And then actually eating it on something, and then bringing in like farmers who maybe grew the squash that we're putting the vinaigrette on. So like, that's my next sort of like, I'm really excited about it being a chapel experience, and like really bringing like my chef and culinary background into this like spiritual realm. Yeah, that feels really, really exciting to me, and bringing the farmers in to talk about their stories. I feel like hearing the stories of the farmers has always been like, how do I do that? Like, then thinking, I was like, maybe a farmer's market tour, but it doesn't really work for them to tell their story at the market. There's so much happening,
Yeah.
and so I'm still playing around with how to make it work for everyone that is like respectful of their time. But yeah, that's one idea. And then I just want to keep connecting with the farmers market too, and just seeing like how I can support them, like, and keep bridging that. But I guess I'll just stop there for now. Yeah, I've got a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
That's two ideas.
Anybody else? I know we're close to time. Or turn down before class work.
Anyone on Zoom?
There were some words of appreciation already in the lead. Yeah, I heard. Okay, well, since we're close to time, just let's thank Bridgette one more time here. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. Stay tuned for more food opportunities. Chapel. Yeah. And next week we have Dee Grover presenting some work on comics and theology and art and history. So it'll be really fun. Featured student work. Here, everybody.